In this video, we shall be talking about semiotics. Semiotics can be defined very simply as a study of SIGNS, signs. Signs include words, gestures, sounds, objects, and visuals that generate meaning as part of a system of signification. But how can objects be signs? SIGNS. The arrangement of a traffic island with a concrete structure, a central box mounted by a traffic signal or a traffic light is a sign that generates some meaning to us, asking us to look at the light above, move ahead only when it is green, and go around or past the island, or stop if it is red and start if it is orange. Yes or no? A man with a gun is also a sign, since he signifies danger and threat or safety and security if he is in a policeman's uniform. Thus, you could find that signs are very, very interesting that you could read and get the meaning of. If we look at the origin of semiotics, there are two accepted origins of semiotics. One that we have already seen, Saussurean linguistics. Saussure used the term semiology to describe the study of signs, SIGNS, as signifier, signified, and the meaning thereby getting. The other origin of contemporary semiotics is the work of the American philosopher and logician C.S. Peirce. The Peircean type of semiotics is that he preferred the term semiotics, and today this term is more commonly used in the Peircean term. Semiotics is popular among students of media studies, film studies, cultural studies, in addition to those of literary criticism. Semiotics provides them with the tools required to analyze the forms of a text and to read texts as part of the general social system of signs, where meanings are generated, accepted, and subverted as part of a cultural process. Semiotics helps them relate the various elements of a text to each other and to the larger social system. In this, it is almost similar to that of Saussurean structuralism. When we talk about the structuralist semiotics, builds on semiotic theories of signs to read narrative for a discussion of structuralist semiotic. Saussurean semiotics assigns meanings through syntagmatic and paradigmatic relationship of the words, as we already saw. It also gives importance to the diachronic study, which is a historical study of language, and synchronic study of language, which is the study of language at a particular part of time. Signifiers, signified relationships of the signs in spite of its arbitrary status of a language is very, very special to Saussurean linguistics. Since we have acquired some familiarity with Saussure's work, we can now move on to look at Peirce's contribution to the study of signs. Peirce offered a three-concerned or triadic model of the sign. The triadic model of Peirce talks about the representamen, interpretant, and object. These are the three important concerns of Peirce while understanding the meaning of a particular expression. What he means by representamen is the form the sign takes, material or immaterial, like sounds, writing, a painting, a gesture, a word, etc. This is the equivalent of the Saussurean signifier. It is also sometimes described as a sign vehicle. What Peirce means by interpretant is the sign that is made up of sign itself, or the sense that is made up of sign itself. That is, the sign created in the mind of the listener or the viewer as a result of reading or listening to the representamen. So when we look at a signifier like tree, for me, maybe the tree is different. The tree that I have in my grandmother's house. For somebody, it is the tree that is there in his garden. For Dilip Chitre, the tree is the banyan tree. So it could be different trees, and immediately the object that comes up is the interpretant of the sign. So the sign or maybe the signifier is the represent, and the representment means the signifier, and the answer that you get or the understanding that we get after we listen to the signifier or the representament is called as interpretant. Now this could be different for different people. What is called as the book for me is Bhagavad Gita. For somebody it is the Bible. For somebody it is Shakespeare's text. For somebody it is Keatsian Ode. For somebody it is Quran. Or for somebody it is Buddha's text. So it could be different texts. The same word might mean differently for different people. It is important to note that the interpretant is not the person doing the reading, but rather the idea that is generated in the mind when we see the sign. That's very important. And the third interesting explanation that is given by Peirce in the triadic model of the sign is object. That to which the sign refers. If the sign is representament and interpretant is the meaning that you get individually by listening to the signifier, then the object to which the signifier is referring. So it is in Saussurean term signified. It is sometimes called as referent also. All three make up a sign. So in general, what signifier calls it, what Saussure calls as signifier and signified is what is represented by Peirce through representament, interpretant and object. All these three make up the sign for Peirce, and the interaction between these three is what is called as semiosis, where we get the meaning of the word. Language is the effect of this interaction. For example, let us take a sign in a doctor's clinic. The doctor is in is what is written on a signboard. Okay. Now this is a sign that is inscribed as words and not as a picture. What semiosis occurs here? Representament is the text itself, that is the board that has doctor is in. Object is the doctor referred to in the text. And interpretant is the idea that is generated in our mind upon reading this sign that the doctor is inside and we must wait there. Yes or no? The sign itself does not say please wait. But when we read doctor is in, we are supposed to wait. But the idea generated by the sign asks us to do so. So we can quickly detect the paradox here, a paradox that will recall Saussure's own notion of referentiality. The sign generates another sign, another interpretant in our minds, and thereby gives the meaning of it. Yes or no? So it's very interesting the moment you start observing these signs in the Peircean context or maybe in the Saussurean context. So if you want to use Saussure's concept to understand Peirce, a signifier generates yet another signifier in our mind. This process of signs giving rise to another signs in our act of reading or listening is a feature of language, human language. And we therefore have an unending semiosis, one giving rise to another. Unending semiosis where the representament or the signifier generates more signs, which we then have to interpret, leading to more signs, and so on continuously till we get the meaning. Many a times we keep on going meaning after meaning, and there cannot be one meaning that has been inferred upon. Signifiers, we will opt for Saussure's signifier as a term since it is more commonly used than the representament, are related to their objects of reference in three modes. The semiotics of Saussure or Peirce helps us to understand the meaning in linguistic expressions. That's very important. Let's look at the first level of expression. The first is symbol or symbolic, that is very important. The symbol or the symbolic, where there is no relation between the signifier and the object or referent, and the relation has to be learnt. This is what exactly happens when we are learning a new language. We don't know any equation at all. We just learn, oh, this is called as a tree. T-R-E-E is the spelling. The pronunciation is T sound, R sound, E sound, and this would mean this particular object. So the very first time where there is no relation between the signifier and the object and we learn it, all language in fact is symbolic. That's what we do. If we understand how we picked up the English language, we go back to our nursery classes whereupon we have the books, the picture book. All pictures are there that we commonly seen at home in the surrounding, or maybe in the school, or maybe in the offices or in the road, and then the pictures are there and the words are written below. What we do while learning the language is we correlate the picture, that is a symbol, to the signifier, the word. So all language is symbolic since there is no real connection between the word cat and the animal as such. We acquire the relation through use. For example, we understand that a sign of the red cross on the nameplate indicates medical doctor. A red light on the traffic signal indicates stop. There is no intrinsic connection between a woman or a man who practices medicine and the Red Cross. Similarly, there is no connection between the act of stopping your vehicle and the red light, but we learn it and we do it. Similarly, there is no connection between the act of stopping your vehicle and the red light. These are the inverted commas may meanings that we have acquired or learned. The symbolic sign is arbitrary in the relationship between the signifier and the signified. It is also clear that the meaning and the relation between signifier and the object is known by conventions and a set of rules established by common use. We don't know something would mean that we are out of the context of the convention of the rules. Now we have to learn. That's it. I don't know French language would mean I don't know what book is called in French language. Agree with it. So the more I acquaint with the words and the symbols, I automatically will understand a language. That is how every child or every individual picks up a language. The second important thing to understand the meaning is icon or iconic. Icon or iconic means that the signifier here resembles the object it seeks to represent. It mimics the signified or the concept, takes on some of the object's qualities. Onomatopoeic words are very good examples of iconic sign. Here the sign is hiss. Automatically you understand what do I mean. I mean it is a snake. Similarly, when we say he fell with a thump, what does the mean thump? What does the word thump mean? The thump tries to capture the sound of a body falling down and hitting the floor. Thud. Right? The iconic sign is imitative in the relationship between signifier and signified. In general, the onomatopoeic words are there. Coo is koil. Kokoriko is, a cock. Right? Or s is a snake. Z is a bee. So all these are iconic signifiers. The third variety of signifiers identified in a language is index or indexical. The signifier here is directly connected to the signified in some way or the other. A good example of the indexical sign would be the knock at the door. Tick, 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 knock. We infer that the signifier, that is the knock is produced by, is connected to the presence of somebody outside who wishes to come in. Another example would be the simple fever. Fever is a sign that is directly connected to the pathological cause. The fever is a signifier that suggests that something is wrong in the body. Semiotics suggests that for users of language, sign stands in for or represent or something. Either it is symbolic or it is iconic or it is indexical. Yes or no? So signs are made of signifiers, that is words and sounds, and signifieds, that is the objects. So you have the signifiers with you and you have the signifieds corresponding to it, which could be indicated in an indexical way or iconic way or symbolic way as according to Saussure or Peirce. And the relationship between the two can be arbitrary or imitative or directly connected. So semiosis is the process of interaction between the word signifier and the object that is referred to, which is signified. And the idea or sign generated in our mind upon hearing or reading the word is exactly what is called as semiosis. How do we get the meaning of a particular word is what is called as semiosis. Semioticians, therefore, believe that reality is understood as a set of signs. Signs construct our reality, and it will be this particular notion of language and signs that post-structuralism will build upon in the 1960s and later. Julia Kristeva, the post-structuralist psychoanalyst, early works on the poetic language argued that the entrance of the subject into language was motivated by pleasure, which is very interesting. Yes or no? And so, signification includes two main components. One is called as the semiotic, the other is called as the symbolic. The semiotic is associated with the mother at the body and the pre-linguistic, or what she calls cora. That is what Julia Kristeva calls cora. This is the material or the poetic dimension of the language. It is the foundation of language for Kristeva and what she terms as the genotext. The second important component for Julia Kristeva in understanding a language is the symbolic. This is the syntax, the grammar of a language. The grammar of the language, the expressed linguistic acts. It is the language of communication as we know it and is what Kristeva calls as phenotext. So you have a genotext and you have a phenotext. Genotext is semiotic and is associated with the pre-linguistic understanding of each of us, whereas phenotext is symbolic and through language. Signification is a combination of these two elements for Kristeva, the genotext and the phenotext, located the maternal, as seen in the theorizing of the semiotic, at the heart of the language. A theoretical shift that was at once startling and innovative, for it proposed a strong case of returning to the materiality of language and subject formation, the body. Kristeva sees art as a means of articulating the semiotic. So, thereafter, we come to the end of